All right, it is now official. Sam Darnold, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Um, I'm happy. Seahawks won the Super Bowl 29-13 over the Patriots. Um, I'm happy. I was rooting for Seattle. I was rooting for Darnold. Um, I thought this game went exactly how I hoped it would go. I did think it would be closer, but that Seahawks defense is a beast. You know, they're in the discussion for one of the best defenses. You know, in the last 20, 30 years, I think, with the way they take apart some of these teams. But you know, Darnold did not win MVP. It went to their running back Walker. So Walker or Welker, which was actually my pick for the. I don't have proof of it, but that was my pick for the. He was my pick to be the MVP. Should have probably been somebody on the defense because the Patriots scored some points in the fourth quarter, but this was like a demolition. This was like, it's like they were facing Max Brosmer again for 3 quarters. They just destroyed Drake May, destroyed him. Stephon Diggs didn't do shit. I think he caught 2 passes, and they got in a fight on the sideline. I mean, Diggs is just he is crashing out. But Darnold, you know, he wasn't going to win MVP, but he had a pretty good game. He had a better game than some quarterbacks who have won Super Bowl MVPs. He was 19 of 38 for 202, and he got a touchdown, and he just missed a couple other potential big plays. There was one kind of early in the game where he was scrambling, kind of under pressure, and threw one. Had a guy open and just missed. Would have probably been like an 80-yard touchdown or something, and then he probably would have won MVP. But like it's been set in stone that the Vikings made a huge mistake with this Darnold thing. I did a video after the NFC Championship game, talking about Darnold, but like this cements it. This is like, we blew it. And all the people who are still, I think it's because they're in the J.J. McCarthy cult. They refuse to let go of this McCarthy thing. They refuse to admit that that the Vikings blew it on what they did at quarterback, letting Darnold go, and turning the whole thing over to strychnine. They refuse to admit that was a mistake. And they won't let it go, and they want to tear down Darnold. All they want to do is say he didn't have anything to do with the Seahawks winning this game or winning the Super Bowl. He didn't have anything to do with their whole season. These are the same fucking people who, when J.J. McCarthy throws for 140 yards in a meaningless post-elimination regular season game, they want to throw him a fucking parade. And they want to act like he's on his way to superstardom. Well, even the damn Vikings don't believe in J.J. McCarthy anymore because they fired the GM who drafted him and also, let Darnold walk. Now, is he being the fall guy for, was KOC involved in that too? We don't know exactly how much involvement there was. I think there was more involvement than maybe some people want to admit, but I mean, there were some quotes during the lead up to the Super Bowl from a couple of Vikings players, including Justin Jefferson. You read between the lines, they don't believe in J.J. McCarthy. They were mad that they moved on to J.J. McCarthy, and they let Darnold walk. So there are players who don't believe in J.J. McCarthy. Nobody believes in J.J. McCarthy. All the reports are that the Vikings are going to be, very much in the QB market in this off season. We got about a month now until free agency gets going. There will be stuff before then, but there's going to be it's going to be a big focus of the off season because they're not going to go into next season with an uncontested J.J. McCarthy as QB1. So they know that everybody in the organization knows that they blew it. but you still got some of these JJ cultists who won't admit that they blew it. And as part of this, they have to try to tear down Sam Darnold. Was Sam Darnold unbelievable in this game? Of course not. He was like elite game manager type. He was facing a pretty good defense too. Not as good as Seattle's defense, but New England's got a good defense. He did fine. He did what he needed to do. He didn't have a big turnover. He didn't have a turnover the entire postseason. He played very well. He did what he needed to do. He wasn't throwing for 400 yards a game and 5 touchdowns a game. Well, when we had a quarterback who put up a lot of stats, that quarterback got shit on for putting up stats. So is winning important or are stats important? Ideally, you can have both. Sometimes you don't have both. Darnold had a big NFC Championship game to help get Seattle to this game. But these JJ Coulters, they don't want to give Darnold any credit because it makes their guy that their precious 9 makes him look bad. Well, it's in concrete now that the Vikings blew it. If you want to hold on to the slight belief that maybe JJ McCarthy can still become something, I suppose you can't say it's a 0% chance that that's going to happen, but the organization doesn't even believe that's going to happen. So it's like look, I bleed purple. I many times I have when in doubt, I've always taken the Viking side and excuse what they've done, even if I don't like things they do. I try to excuse it because I'm like, oh well, maybe this is why they did it. No, they blew it. I was wrong too. With the way that season ended last year, with the disaster against Detroit and the disaster against the Rams, I was wrong. I was pissed off at Darnold. I was blaming him. I don't think I was entirely blaming him, but he took the brunt of it. For me, there's at least a couple videos on here where I was ripping him. I was fine when they let him go because I trusted this organization that they knew what they were doing. I think if even if this happened and McCarthy looked like he was the real deal, I think it'd be a little easier to take. But he's not. He's not the guy. He's never going to be the guy. And we let walk a guy who, at the time we let him walk, he was 27 years old. Worked really good in this system, this offense. Everybody seemed to like him. Yes, he sucked in his the first 2 really, really big games of his career. But prisoner of the moment, I overreacted. A lot of people overreacted. A lot of quarterbacks. There are guys who were in the Hall of Fame who didn't, who weren't great in their first taste of the postseason. It was a mistake. Way too reactionary to a couple of bad games. And it's like I was wrong. I wasn't the one making the decisions. I wouldn't have made the decision to hand it to McCarthy either. I would have done something different, even if I liked Darnold. Go, you figure something else out. It's a compounding, bad QB decisions that put us where we were. But I was wrong, and they were wrong. They got arrogant. They thought they knew what they were doing. They didn't know what they were doing, and here we are. And Kwesi lost his job because of it. I truly do not. I think Darnold balling out in that NFC Championship game, getting Seattle to the Super Bowl. I think that was the nail in the coffin for Kwesi. I think that's why they fired him. And maybe that's reactionary, but I think there's more of a a body of work in a negative sense for him than there was for Darnold, because his tenure with the Jets and the Panthers when he looked like just one of those busts, that was held against him last year at the end of the season. It was like, oh, it's the same old Darnold. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe just there are Hall of Fame level quarterbacks who would sometimes get in the playoffs and play poorly. It's, it can happen. There's no quarterback who never had a bad playoff game. Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame, whatever. Every quarterback that gets in there, I don't think there's ever been a quarterback who never had a bad playoff game. At least one. And, it's a lesson. It's a lesson for me as a fan, lesson for GMs and coaches, everybody. Sometimes, you can be real prisoner of the moment and, make a long-term decision based off a small part of a sample size instead of what we had last year, which was a 17 games, well, an 18 game sample size. That was mostly good, mostly very good. Yes, you would have had to pay Darnold. I don't know if he would have stayed here for similar contract that he got with Seattle. If you had to pay him, you could have franchised him, and then just kicked the can down the road and maybe seen how things went. Yes, you would have had to do that. You would have had to pay the quarterback. God forbid you pay a quarterback. But you would have had to pay the quarterback. You wouldn't have been able to get all of the free agents that you did last year. But you know what? Most of the free agents that you got last year were a complete disaster. I would rather have kept Darnold and maybe not signed, the defensive tackles that we signed who were a waste of time. But nothing we can do about it now. We're a laughing stock. Like, people were laughing at the Vikings. Like, yeah, we deserve it, but I was rooting for Darnold, and I was rooting for Seattle to win this game. I still hate the Patriots. That hasn't gone away. And I'm the weird NFL season is over. Certainly didn't think Seattle was going to win it all at the start of the year. It was the fourth time ever that it was a Super Bowl matchup with two teams who both missed the playoffs the year before. So that's obviously a rarity. And we'll see what the Vikings can cook up in this offseason now with with a bit of a new front office, and see what happens at the quarterback position. But they can pull out of this disaster, maybe, and maybe Darnold will never win another one. It's certainly more likely that he never wins another one than he does. And I hate this argument that, like, oh well, the Vikings weren't going to win the Super Bowl this year with Darnold anyway. That's the bar. So it's a good decision to get rid of a player unless you were literally going to win a Super Bowl this year with them. That is such a stupid fucking argument. And these people who are making that argument are really, really dumb. Like, yeah, you probably weren't going to win this Super Bowl if you kept Sam Darnold. But guess what? He could have been your guy for years to come because he's still young enough. He's still young enough now. I think it can be. I think he was 27 last offseason when we let him go. He's in his prime. He's going to be in his prime. He could have been our guy for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And we know he worked in this system. Reasonable to think he could have improved in the system with consistency, like it happens with any quarterback. You get changes in coaches, changes in systems, and then it stunts your growth. I think it's reasonable to think that Darnold would have been better in 2025 with the Vikings than he was in 2024. And people say, oh well, behind our offensive line he would have been terrible. Well, how do you know? Like you say, it's like this thing. Well, this is what would have happened, and it's unprovable because we didn't see it happen. So you can't say, oh well, of course that's not right. But it's such a dumb argument. It's like we wouldn't have won the Super Bowl anyway. So why keep talking? Okay, well why? Well, we wouldn't have won the Super Bowl with anybody. So why make any moves? Why sign anybody? These people are just they're just coping. These people who love JJ McCarthy, who are wedded to this idea that you can only win a Super Bowl if you have a rookie contract quarterback. They're just wedded to this idea. They won't get off of it. They won't admit the mistake that was made. And here we are. You know, the guy's won a Super Bowl now. He is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Seattle loves to have him. He can be there for years. And maybe this is a one-off, but he could, you know, this could be, you know, this could be an extended run for him. You know, a real like, you know, not a like quarterback on the level of like Mahomes, Josh Allen, those guys, but you know, like, you know, the term game manager is like an insult, but it's really not. Like if you could be really good game manager when you have a good defense in a run game, and you just kind of, you know, make some clutch throws here and there when you can, make some big plays. You can win that way. You can win a lot. You can win a lot that way. And he's won a Super Bowl now. I don't think we were winning the Super Bowl this year if we keep him. But that's not the bar. We had a good quarterback who worked. Like just find this guy. We just find this guy. You know, diamond in the rough guy. You know, guy who's now one of the great, you know, career resurrection stories that we've ever seen. And we just let him walk out the door, and we handed the fucking franchise to Strychnine. And now we're scrambling to maybe find some real competition so that we don't have to give Strychnine the job next year. And you know, depending on what happens next year, we might be back in the draft looking for another quarterback. We could have had a guy for years to come. We blew it, and a lot of Vikings fans are too stubborn to admit that they blew it. I admit I blew it with my reaction to Darnold at the end of last season, where I was fine with him being gone. I blew it. I was wrong, but I wasn't the one making the decisions. The decision makers were wrong. And one of them is out on his ass now because of it. And it's time for that segment of Vikings fans to just fess up and admit that we blew it. We let a hell of a quarterback walk out the fucking door for nothing. We blew it, and Seattle reaped the benefits. So, thus ends the NFL season. Wasn't, pretty good playoffs, I guess. Pretty entertaining playoffs. Tough season from a Vikings standpoint, obviously. You know, I'm looking forward to the off season because, you know, there's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening because we gotta get rid of players to get under the cap. Because even having the rookie contract quarterback, we still screwed up the cap. Figure out who we get a quarterback. Just for the meltdowns from certain people, I really do hope we bring Kirk back in here. And I will be insufferable if we bring Kirk back and he beats out JJ McCarthy in a camp competition. I will be insufferable. And I know you're saying, what, more insufferable than already? But you know, that's for future videos. So, you know, Sammy, good job. Proud of you. You know, it's not your fault that we didn't know what we had, and we let you go. Seattle got what we didn't appreciate, and you know, he deserves it, and Seattle deserves their title. And I'm always glad to see the Patriots lose. Still, still hate them. And, you know, maybe next year, the familiar refrain for all of our teams, but every year you watch, every year see the Super Bowl, see the other team hoisting the Lombardi. One day, just one day, I want it to be ours. And, you know, it would be a hell of a turnaround if it was us next year, but, you know, maybe someday. So, adios.